Hey everybody, we're back to Unit 6, which is African Art here with College Board, and this is the power figure, also known as the Nkisi Nikandi. And you're looking at probably one of the coolest, most interesting, especially visually interesting pieces in all of the curriculum, I think. It was made by the Congo peoples, and they are from the Democratic Republic of the Congo. It was made in the late 19th century, so we're talking late 1800s. And primary materials are wood for the whole entire sculpture and metal, like assorted metals. And there are a few minor materials here also, but those kind of vary depending on the power figure. So let's take a look at the one we need to know. These four cuties are not College Board, not the visual that you need to recognize, but I just thought it would be kind of interesting to see the varied, visual that you have. Every power figure is a bit different. So let's take a look at ours. Here he is. It is a human figure, but definitely an abstract human figure. And what was important in the Congo basically was this concept or access to sacred medicine, these medicines that would come from the gods or the god. And Nikisi, part of the subtitle of this piece, means sacred medicine. And Nikandi, it translates to kind of hunter. So a power figure basically is this magical charm, like this magical power, really, that's carved into the likeness of a human figure because these particular power figures have influence in the human world, like they can impact human life. So they're going to look human just to reinforce that idea. Um, so the figure itself, again, human figure, he's standing kind of at the ready, meaning kind of ready to act, and has kind of just normal feet and legs. That's not the most interesting part. Hands are not very emphasized. The arms are at the sides, and the head, you can see here a little bit closer. There you go. The head, eyes definitely open and alert and ready to go. Mouth kind of open and ready to kind of breathe or act or take some kind of action. So this power figure kind of vibrates with an energy that's ready to be unleashed. And what would happen basically is it would be made, and it would be made under the consultation of, excuse me, let's go back, under the consultation of a spiritual specialist. And the spiritual specialist would activate it with chants or prayers and like preparing a sacred substance. So you'd have an artist who made it, but that's not enough. You need this spiritual specialist to give it its power, basically. And then the sacred substances that are called balongo, which are medicinal combinations. And by that I mean, like, think of the medicines that we might take today for a cold or the flu or just have a headache or whatever it might be. Think of medicinal combinations here to be like seeds. And if you put seeds into the sculpture, you might have this power and charm of replication. Or they might put claws in as a medicine, and that would maybe help the figure grasp something. Or stones would be the medicinal material, and that might mean to protect something. So whatever the medicinal or balongo combination I want, I would create it and then mash that up or whatever it would be, and you'd insert it here. Sometimes it's stored in the head, other times, and more likely, it's stored in the belly. And so you'd have this almost looks like a belly button in a way. This is a shell on ours. And sometimes you'd have a little container covered in glass, and you'd put the material in that particular kind of container. And you cover it in glass, it protects it, and because that area where the medicine is represents another world, like the spiritual world. And remember that a power figure is a charm carved, the likeness of a human, but he's kind of the container of these sacred medicines that they believe come from the gods. So let's say I have an issue with, one of my kids or my husband or a neighbor, let's say, and I want to make an oath with this person, maybe about landscaping or whatever it might be. So we would make an oath. I would take a nail or some kind of metal sharp object. I'd lick it. Yes, you heard that right. I would lick it to seal the deal with my saliva and part of me. I'd lick it and then I'd insert it into the power figure. And so it's binding. I've committed. Now, if the oath is broken, the power figure gets activated to carry out the mission, whatever that mission might be. It could make sure the oath is completed. It might avenge somebody's actions. It might guard over something. It could do a lot of different things. So that's an interesting thing about this power figure. It has the power to act. If an oath is broken or someone is attacked or threatened or whatever, the power figure then has been blessed and activated and will go and solve the problem. So if you're thinking in a kind of a strange way of like a voodoo doll, if you've ever seen like a voodoo doll with pins in it, it is a similar idea that probably stems from these Nkisi Kandi figures in Africa. So that's definitely kind of a more contemporary notion or idea that relates. I think that you could clearly kind of connect it to help make it make sense. Now, every piece, a lot of pieces, let's say not every, but a lot of pieces of non-Western art, especially in Africa, you have to talk about as part of its context, the colonial powers and what they do with the art. So in this case, in about the 1800s, Europeans are coming into this part of the Congo, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and they destroy a lot of these power figures. They believe them to be sorcery or heresy against the church. But then others are collecting them and selling them or profiting off of them somehow. But that's really what happens to these at some point in the 19th century, is that the Europeans, when they are coming over to colonize this area of Africa, they look at these as, because they're coming from a Christian perspective, they look at this as heresy, as sorcery, witchcraft, and definitely not something that they want to encourage. So again, you have this figure carved out of wood that is going to act in life, but it has this connection to the spiritual world, the gods, and it is, I would definitely say, a ritualistic piece, a human figure, but definitely an abstract human figure. Just a really interesting story and a really interesting use for an art piece that is definitely going to be memorable, I think.